character, chastity, self-respect, accountability, moral commitment, loyalty, and reverence to the inner child. These things can never, ever, ever be separated from spiritual expression and claim. Ever. Self-care, in the name of Aries series, conjunct Chiron. Healing and therapy, okay? Complementary to Pisces Neptune coming to an end. Looking in hindsight, Pisces Mercury will show us the thoughts that we missed in examination, the thoughts that we failed to judge and criticize within ourselves, the thoughts that we failed to test for authenticity, the thoughts that did not come from our soul, but instead was infiltrated into the self because we became that careless about our consent and what we're identifying with, what we're incorporating into our claims. Now let me bring this to the disturbing subject, because that's what I do. That's what I do. I keep you uncomfortable enough to really grow. I keep you uncomfortable enough to step outside of this circle of futility in this so-called spiritual space. I'm the bad guy. That's me. So examination. Females, through the internet, Pisces Neptune transit especially. Females in spiritual spaces and on internet have an ongoing legacy of romanticizing therapy and healing claims. Therapy journeys, healing journeys. Clickbait words, clickbait statements. Clickbait words and clickbait statements. With no conviction. Just a desire for attention and validation. The desire to fill the comment section up with, yes, girl, heart emoji, yes, girl. Inflicting trauma on the self. Creating drama for the self. Being utterly destructive and reckless with the self. Objectifying the self sexually. Dismantling all that is sacred about the self. Stripping the self of every fiber of clothes and decency for the public to see. Every problem that you got, you run to the internet and you tell your damn business. Every sexual encounter that you have, you run to the internet and you tell your damn business. And this especially, again, with the African American female, your feminist hero, the one who you follow, the one whose instructions you take, the one who you live vicariously through in secret, but you will never admit it. And I'm mentioning these things as a history course in current times, that we may not repeat this history. my life, I have watched African American females with this claim of I'm on my healing journey. Turn the camera on themselves with a nice turtleneck and big teacup, put the legs up on the couch in a nice comfy position, some soft gentle music in the background, and talk real softly into the microphone about their claims of healing and therapy, their claims of growth, giving out all kinds of advice while conveniently showing ass, titty, nipple, and pussy print all the way. Serving face. These are magicians. These are frauds. These are liars. Who make mockery of spirituality. They make mockery of therapy. They make mockery of healing and know nothing about these things that they claim. Nothing. They are in the business of self-betrayal, self-sabotage, self-infliction, self-undoing, self-hatred, self-betrayal, and making art of the act of illusion that they construct around it. And you fall for it every time. You believe it every time. You fall headlong into it every time, and you become fake and phony just like they do. You become fraudulent just like they do. Regurgitators, reciters, parrots who repeat words that they do not intelligently understand. Parrots who repeat phrases and statements that they have not internalized and lived out. Sex addicts, transactional sex addicts, sexual addictions, and the consequences of sexual addictions. Defended by cancel culture so that no one can correct, scrutinize, judge, or hold accountable, examine, or even question without shame and insult in return. African American females have owned the conscious space, the spiritual space, since Neptune stepped into Pisces, and it has been nothing but fraud and sex work. Pure bullshit. 100% bullshit. Because ain't nobody got healed out of it. Ain't nan legs closed behind these theologies. No womb has become sacred behind these theologies. No breast, ass, or pussy has become covered behind these theologies. No dignity, self-respect, and sense of morale has been restored and reinstituted within the constitution of the self behind these claims of theologies from the Black American female in the spiritual space. She is a fraud and she is a damn lie. Every time she get in front of the motherfucking camera, she is a fraud and a damn lie with a head wrap on. And even these days with a hijab on. She's addicted to nakedness. No respect for the self. The harm that comes out of this is that it is misleading to those who desire to learn, who desire to understand. It is misleading. And when it comes to those who have that real power, that real spiritual power, it becomes a shock to those who become introduced to such real and true power that does offer transformation, that does offer healing, The overemphasis of conspiracy theories, race superiority, racism, melanin obsession. We was kings. We was queens. We was gods. I am a goddess. I am a queen. I am empress this and I am empress this. I am Oshun. I am Yemeya. I am a witch. But after the recitation of these alloidal titles and assumptions of the self, it simply boils down to prostitution. Sexual marketing. Belonging in desperation for attention and validation. She has run the men away from her home. She has run the men away from her life, from her family. And goes to the 11th house. Goes to the internet. To source and farm out of scarcity. The sentiment, the affection, the validation and feedback that was meant for a husband to give her directly. She has turned the 11th house into a space of intimacy, where only private things are shared of her and nothing is sacred. All that comes out of her mouth are things that only should be uttered between a husband and a wife. But she turns the camera on of her body is that which only a husband should be authorized to see of her, as she should understand that she is sacred, but she does not. Spirituality has become her mockery. Therapy has become her mockery as she celebrates every divorce, as she celebrates her victory through warfare of courts and the weaponization of children. As she absorbs the worship and praise of herself from sexual influence, crowds and crowds of simps, weak men, and lustful women. A sea of women who are more lustful for women than men are lustful for women. Never finding her way out of the illusion that she constructed for herself. Because no one dares to confront her with the truth. No one dares to utter the truth. No one dares to contradict, try, or challenge the legacy that she has going on through sex. And this makes all of us complicit and compliant with this crime against all souls in humanity, as we have a responsibility with our influence not to lead vulnerable astray, not to lead the ignorant astray, not to lead those who have need a spiritual resource astray. We have a responsibility to every soul. It is sacred. But she exploits it for her own personal gain. Teaching all women that your womb is not sacred, that your body is not sacred, that perfect strangers should know every inch of your body, that perfect strangers should have access to your nakedness. She has justified the argument, the idea, the suggestion that morality is separate from spirituality. That good character is separate from spirituality. That God consciousness is apart from spirituality. She has separated it. In the same way that white men separated the patriarchy from the matriarchal foundation of which it is to be the carapace and protective shell of the vulnerable inner core of matriarchal will and intent of the people, which is the only appropriate way to express a republic. But in his corporate instinct, he has separated from the matriarchal life force of which it is constructed for, making it a de facto infrastructure of greed, tyranny, oppression, and dark shadow 8. I say this that you all be warned, that you all be careful, that you all be wise of what influences you are allowing into your spiritual walk. Take it serious. Take your soul serious. Take your spiritual work serious. Have integrity about your spiritual work. Have sincerity about your spiritual work. Don't turn it into sex work like the African American female has done. Don't turn it into self-validation, praise, and worship of the self, as she has done. Do not reduce it to nakedness, lawlessness, bankruptcy of morality, the warping of the conscience, the disconnection from the inner child. How do you have spirituality with this crisis? How do you have shadow work when you are impenetrable when it comes to examination, criticism, or being held accountable? Who gonna check me, boo, is her favorite phrase. Everywhere she goes and puts her hand upon spirituality, it becomes perverted. It becomes perverse. It becomes reduced. It becomes an act. It becomes a sexual transaction. It becomes a means of absorbing more worship, praise, and validation for herself and her body and her face. We have the power to return the reverence and respect and sacredness to spirituality and devotion. We have that power to take that back, to restore it, to set the record straight that this is not spirituality. This is not a healing journey. It is the sowing of injury and self-betrayal. It is mockery. It is theft. It is tyranny and sabotage to the inner child. The searing of the conscious itself. She teaches you to celebrate what is shameful between man and woman. What is shameful of a woman to do or say or behave. We African Americans have a unique gift. The power of influence. It is effortless in us. The influence that we walk with can reach all over the entire globe. Creativity is as natural as breathing for us. But to whom much is given, much is expected. The crown is heavy. The burden is heavy. What if we betray those who we influence? As an African American male, I have betrayed all of humanity. I have betrayed all of the young men of humanity, all of the youth of humanity. If I lead them to gangsterism, if I lead them to violence and drug dealing, if I lead them to thugging, if I lead them to the spirit of playing with women, it's the misuse of the gift that I walk with, while knowing that I, as an African American male, so-called, owns the heart of all of the children of the earth. I should be mindful of that. So likewise, she should be mindful of the trust that is upon her and not to abuse it, not to betray that trust. Where are your clothes, African American woman? Where are your morals? Where are your values? Where is your self-respect? Where is your dignity? Where is your pride? Where is your conscience? Where is your proof and evidence that these are things that you do indeed understand and have internalized within your collective image and sisterhood? All women of the world are marching to her cadence. And as they imitate her, they bring in the virus of corruption into the family, into the relationship, into the communities. Unwittingly, not knowing what they're spreading, what they're consenting to, what they're authorizing, what they're letting become a plague in their societies. Lusting to stand in her abuse of liberty and freedom. Heedlessness. There is no one in America to correct the black woman. There is no one to hold her accountable. There is no one who's in position to teach her or correct her. There's no one in position to manage her. And you may say that this statement is inappropriate, but what happens when someone with so much power fails to manage their self? Fails to hold their self accountable? Fails to be mindful of the consequences of their words, behavior, and action to the public space? Which makes her just like the white Christian nationalists. They are guilty of the same crimes against humanity.